What is up, everyone? It is the Mad King Paradox that's here bringing you my spoiler-free review of Captain America Civil War. Spoiler-free. Just because I know there's a lot of people out there that haven't seen the movie yet, and for whatever reason clicked on a review of the movie right after it came out because I can't even think of a good way of describing it. But, spoiler-free. I will be going into details in some of the scenes, but for the most part, I want it to remain spoiler-free just because it just recently came out a few days ago. There's still a lot of people that haven't seen it, and I don't want to ruin anything for people that haven't seen it yet and don't want to be ruined. So, this is my obligatory part of the video where I go, I'm going to be discussing things from the movie, so if you want to back out now, wait until you see the movie, then come back and hear my thoughts about it, that's all well and fine. Go right on ahead. Go see the movie, come back, then listen to me talk about it for a little bit. Still here? Alright, then let's go. You've been warned. But like I said, it will be spoiler-free for the most part, and just details here and there about some of the scenes. So, what did I think of this movie? It wasn't a bad movie. In fact, it was actually a pretty good movie. I'd recommend it to anyone who's been a fan of action movies, the Marvel movies in general. You know, I would recommend it. But there were a few things in it that, for me personally, are a nitpick at best. Not really anything wrong with the movie, but for me personally, I'm just like, why did they do this? And they're just little stupid things, but to me, I'm just like, alright, I get why they did this, but why? And I'm going to talk about one of those right now, which they do throughout the movie a lot, which is they will have in big words where they are in the world. Which, okay, that's fine. You're saying where they are, but to me, I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, why do you have it go across the entire screen? Have you not seen those, I don't want to say spy movies because they're not the only ones that do it, but those movies where they have the little text in the bottom of the screen, right here somewhere, and it says the time zone, where they're at, what country they're in, something like that. That would have done just fine. But no, they have it in big words that go all the way across the screen of where they're at. And like I said, it's not a problem, but to me personally, I'm just like, why did you do it that way? That's kind of weird. But it's a little thing, not too big, so not really any complaints there for the most part. It's just something I wouldn't have expected. Secondly, they brought back that guy from The Winter Soldier. You know, the guy that wasn't the main villain, but he was just like the other villain that I didn't care enough to remember his name. The guy that you saw at the end of the movie of The Winter Soldier that had all the burn marks and his face was all fucked up. Yeah, that guy. They brought him back for the beginning of the movie. And at first, it seemed like something interesting. He and his team, in his new getup, were going after a biological weapon, which you would think would be something that was key to the plot. Okay. I liked his new getup. I was trying to think really hard because I know a good bit about comic book lore, but I don't consider myself an expert or someone who's knowledgeable of it. I just know little bits and pieces here. So I'm sitting there, I'm just like, who is that guy? Because I'm trying to think, I try to not correlate the movies with the comics too much because I do know that things are changed a bit and something that happened in the comics didn't happen in the movies. So I try not to correlate them too much, but I still keep it in the back of my head. So while I was watching this, I was going, I know who that is, but I can't think of who he is in the comics. And like I said, I'm not an expert on the comics, so I don't even know if he was a part of it or not. But I was thinking, maybe this guy is going to be like a reoccurring villain, small time, that just shows up every now and then, and pretty much is like, set up for the actual plot. Okay, movies have done that before, not that big of an issue. And maybe this biological weapon they're putting so much emphasis on is going to be key to the plot. No. It's just a routine mission that they go on that has nothing to do with the plot except for the events that happen while they're there. Which I don't want to get into because, like I said, for the most part, spoiler free. But I'm sitting there just like, this is what they did at the beginning of The Winter Soldier, where they had this thing happening at the beginning of the movie that you would think would correlate more with the actual plot of the overall movie, but no, it's just set up for the ideals and what happens later instead of something that actually correlates. So, there's that. But then, the other thing that they didn't do bad, but I feel as though they could have done a lot better, but at the same time, something like this is hard to do anyway, so you can't really fault them too much, it's one of those movies where the beginning, the first, I want to say, third of the movie, cuts away to scenes from back several years and then going to present time, then going back several years again to focus on this little thing that happened, and you don't really understand it all until later in the movie where it all correlates. Again, it could have been done a lot worse. I'm not saying it was done perfectly, and I'm not saying it was horrible. But again, it's like a little pet peeve of mine where I've hardly seen any movies that actually were able to pull it off like it was nothing. Where I'm looking at it and just going, wow, I'm really happy they did it that way. That was really amazing. Like I said, it makes sense once you get to later in the movie and when you see all these little random things coming together and forming the big picture. You know, it's not bad. Like I said, not a problem with it. It's just a little tiny pet peeve of mine personally where I'm just like, I get why you're doing it, but I feel as though it could have been done. Like I said, I'm not trying to hold too much against it. Now, the other...
That's pretty much the end of the problems I had with the movie. Like I said, little tiny things that don't really make that big of a difference for the overall film. But aside from that, the good things are what you would expect them to be. The Avengers fighting, the action scenes, the build-up between action scenes that... This is the problem I have with a spoiler-free review because I don't want to say too much about everything else because everyone knows what happens for the Civil War arc in general. The higher-ups of the world governments are tired of them pretty much doing what they please and there being a bunch of casualties. Yes, they do stop world-ending catastrophes and superpowered beings, and they actually did say that they owe the Avengers a great debt that they couldn't even possibly begin to repay. But at the same time, they do show all the key points of the previous Marvel movies, particularly the Avengers, where all these horrible things were going on, like the New York in the events of Avengers 1, the city the city that I can never remember the actual name of, where Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were from, that place as well. And then, I can never remember if it's Uganda or Uganda, the place where Black Panther is from.
I'm going to say Uganda just because I think that's right. I could be wrong a letter or two, but I'm just going to say that just because I don't want to look up what it is mid-video. So if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm going to pronounce it Uganda until after the movie where I actually look it up and correct myself later on. But I'll get the Black Panther in a minute. But yes, as everyone knows, the government officials of the world don't want them to be a private sector anymore, but instead be under their reign, where they vote, I think they said like twice a year, on what the Avengers should do. And that's where the conflict comes, because this group of Avengers thinks that that's an amazing idea, because there are a lot of casualties and there are a lot of things that could have been prevented. Even though we tried our best to prevent all of these bad things from happening, bad things are still going to happen. And so something like this would cut down on that considerably. While the other half are going, that's not entirely true, because we're pretty much people that show up when no one else can do anything. So what if these people say, we know there's something going on over here, but we don't want you to have anything to do with that. We're going to put you over here or just not do anything at all. When, like it's been stated, the Avengers are there to do the things that no one else in the world can do. Like when those aliens came to destroy the planet, no one else could take them on. The Avengers came in. When Ultron raised a city up high into the atmosphere to drop down onto the planet, wiping out all life on Earth, the Avengers were the only ones that could do anything. So there's pros and cons to both sides, and again, that's where the conflict comes from. That's where all of the love for this arc in general is generated, because it isn't a black and white situation. There's these people that think this, and there's these people that think this. But when you really get even more in depth, like I said, it's not just black and white. There's actually multiple viewpoints that have to be taken into consideration. Like the, I can't remember what his official title was, but the main guy who told the Avengers about the Uganda, I don't want to say treaty, I can't remember what the exact name of the document was, but the document that pretty much stated that you were under the command of the world government officials. That guy, his viewpoint was, like I said, we owe you a debt that we can't repay, but we can't have you running around doing whatever you please. And then you have Captain America's side, who believes that, yes, they should sign this and be restricted in the way that prevents more casualties, and then Captain America's side that believe, oh, but if we're restricted, we can't do anything to the best of our ability, and we're pretty much just set on the sidelines while something that we could stop happens just without any resistance. And then you have the viewpoint of our main antagonist, whose name I can't remember because he's from the same place as Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. That place in Age of Ultron, that's name I can never remember. His viewpoint, I don't even want to say, because it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. And like I said, I want it to be spoiler-free for the most part. But his viewpoint, once you figure it out, is actually a viewpoint that you're surprised they haven't touched upon yet. But it's glad that they did. So, there's all these viewpoints throughout the movie from different characters, but none of them are wrong. And at the same time, none of them are right. That's why people like this movie, and like this story in general, because like I said, there is no black and white. It's this person's opinion and these people that follow it, this person's opinion and these people that agree with it. Then there's this person's opinion, these people's opinion, and all these different opinions on what the correct course of action should be, but nobody wanting to give up what they believe is right for them. Even though they do see their point of view, they feel as though their point of view is being completely neglected. So that's where the drama ensues, and that's why there is the Civil War in general. You have ideals versus ideals with all these other ideals thrown into the mix. I'm trying to think of what I want to talk about next. And of course, like I said, you get all the things you wanted to see. I just combined saw and see at once. Wow. Alright. But you have the Avengers kicking ass, as usual. You have the comedic moments, especially between the Winter Soldier and Falcon. Oh my god. The theater I was in, the 2 scenes they had, where it was a comedic Falcon and Winter Soldier scenario, the entire theater was laughing their ass off. It was pretty damn funny. But I would say this is more, it's because it's called Captain America Civil War, but it's more of an Avengers movie than anything, although it does put a lot of focus on Captain Rogers. But at the same time, it's a setup movie, because the events that happen in Civil War spur the things that happen in the series that come afterwards. All the new characters they have come in, all the storylines they have after this. Civil War is that tipping point where the actions of the next few movies, or the rest of the entire series, is pretty much spurred from. And I just thought of one more thing I thought was odd. I don't have a problem with, but I think is odd, that they did in this movie and the Ant-Man movie, which I'm actually glad they used Ant-Man as much as they did in this movie. I felt that they could have used him a bit more, but the time that he got, he pretty much did pretty good, so I'm not going to complain about him. And again, I'll get the Black Panther in a minute. But at the end of both Ant-Man and this movie, at the end of the credits, they go, this person will return. In Ant-Man, it said Ant-Man will return, and at the end of this movie, it says Spider-Man will return. Which I'm actually glad they used Spider-Man as much as they did. I felt as though they gave him just the right amount of screen time. Because we get the not prepubescent, but the younger teen version of Spider-Man that's inexperienced, that still has that veil of innocence about him, instead of like the more mature, darker Spider-Man. And I liked that instead of like in most of the Spider-Man versions where he just has the webbing in his palm where he does his little thing and spits it out, this is the version where he actually has to make his own webbing and keeps it in these little capsules. I was really glad that they touched upon that, because I feel as though that makes him more resourceful. Like, it shows more of what he can do, and it shows that he doesn't have infinite resources. Like, he has to think about what he has to do compared to how much he has on him. Instead of just having an infinite supply, he can just use whenever he wants. And I'm really glad that he made a Star Wars reference when fighting Ant-Man. I really did enjoy that, because I was just like, alright, that was a nice little touch. I liked that. But I don't want to say what happens to any of the characters. I don't want to say, like, how this person interacted with this person and this person came back and did this, or who didn't show up, or who got affected most or towards the end. I don't want to do all that. I will say, I want to know who came up with the idea of putting the Vision in fucking... Whoever had the idea of putting the Vision in, like, the dad sweater outfit, that was my favorite part of the movie. I absolutely loved when half of the movie you see the Vision in, like, this dad uniform where he has, like, the old style 50s sweater going on and like the old golf pants. Oh, I was loving that. I saw that because I'll talk about this scene in a minute. After the events that happened at the beginning of the movie, you have Captain America and Scarlet Witch talking amongst themselves, and then fucking the Vision comes through the wall, and he's in that getup, and I almost lost it. If we weren't in a theater, I would have laughed my ass off. That's how funny it was to me. I absolutely loved it. In half of the movie, he is in that uniform. Not uniform, but in that outfit. And I'm just looking, I'm just going, it's the fucking Vision. One of the strongest, most powerful members of the Avengers, and you have him in a 50s dad getup. The only thing missing is a corncob pipe and a newspaper. That's all you needed to complete it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Now, Black Panther. Oh my god. Black Panther. I loved this guy. I did a lot of research on Black Panther before I went to go see the movie because I wasn't too familiar with him. This guy's a fucking badass. I mean, the list of things that he can do is way off the charts. I think the only one more versatile than him in the actual movies is Iron Man. And even then, that's just because of the tech. Black Panther, that's all him. That's him in his suit. That's it. And not like Iron Man, his suit where he makes upgrades and shit all the time. No, Black Panther actually trains, studies, and just gains all these attributes of a warrior, because that's what he is. He's a Ugandan warrior. He's the king. Where I will talk about this, the first time we see the King of Uganda is on a television in the background at the end of a news thing. They held on it long enough to where you could see it, obviously, but a lot of people, I'm assuming, didn't know that Black Panther was the King of Uganda. So when I saw it, I was just like, who's that old guy on the screen? Are they really making Black Panther this old man? Because Black Panther is supposed to be strong, fit, a lot of stamina, a lot of strength. So you would think like a mid-20s, early 30-year-old. And so when I was watching it, and then I saw the Prince of Uganda come in, I was just like, oh, King's gonna die soon. Alright. Well, we're gonna have to see that. And he did. It kind of got rushed, though, now that I'm thinking about it. Like, they built him up a bit. The relationship with him and his son, I'm not even going to try and pretend to pronounce their names. And then he ends up getting killed. And I'm just looking at him, just like, wow, that was quick. Alright. It builds more time for Black Panther, but you would think they would have done a bit more with him. But Black Panther, I had no problem with. I actually was really looking forward to him in this movie, and he did not disappoint. And I am looking so forward to the Black Panther movie when it finally comes out, because this guy's amazing. Like, the shit he can do is just, wow. When's this movie coming out? I don't remember. But yeah, that's pretty much all the things I wanted to say about the characters in general. I don't want to talk about the main villain because I want that to be something you figure out as you watch the movie. I don't want to say too much. Everyone already knows who's on whose side. I did think it was funny that they put Black Panther on the side that they did, when originally he was on the other person's side. But that was because of Storm and his wife, by the way. He's married to Storm from X-Men, but they don't have anything to do with the X-Men in the Marvel series, so they can't really do that. Even though Pietro and Scarlet Witch are Magneto's children, they can't talk about that. They're not mutants, they're genetically altered people. So, fuck it, alright.
But is there anything else I want to talk about before I piss off? Not really. I talked about everything I wanted to say already. So I guess I'll just skip right to the conclusion. Go watch this movie. That's all I have to say is just go watch this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Everyone I saw in the theater enjoyed it. I heard a lot of people giving it a bunch of praise while I was walking out of the theater. And go see the movie. That's all I can really say. So, that's it. I'll give the movie a good rating. You know, it had a couple of problems with me personally. For other people, the problems I saw, they could just be like, I barely even noticed them. They were nothing to me. Alright, more power to you, buddy. So, yeah, it's a good movie. The events of this movie are going to greatly affect the rest of the series. So it was a necessary movie, and the things they did in it were needed. So it ties in really well. You just have to think about it for a lot of it, and just it's one of those movies where I would highly encourage you actually sit down and think about. Like, watch it a couple of times, catch everything you missed, think about it, discuss it, theorize. You know, it's a movie that is pretty much, I just lost the word. Man, I blank so often, it's embarrassing. It's one of those movies where the more you talk about it, the more things get flushed out and the more ideals that come through. So, that's all I really wanted to say. I really liked it. A lot of people I've heard about really liked it. So, go see it. That's it. Just go see it. So, this is the Mad King Paradox S signing off, and I will see you all in whatever I do next.